We are totally unaware that our food supply, medications, and sometimes even the air we breathe are filled with these fungal poisons fully capable of causing symptoms and diseases in humans. Stay tuned and let the learning begin. You know, we're going to dedicate this whole show to diabetes, and the fungus link is unknown. Diabetes is a disease which they say is genetically linked, and fungus really doesn't play a role, or they don't know. I think it's just the opposite. It's not genetically linked, but fungus plays a huge role in it. I'll never forget Gertrude, my grandmother, dying of diabetes in our home when I was a young boy. First, her toes turned black, then she had all sorts of symptoms, and the next thing I know, Mom was crying and Grandma was gone and she was young. Let's talk about what Grandma died of today. This is a presentation on diabetes that simply everybody with or without diabetes must see. I remember when Grandma died, Gertrude was her name. I remember when she died, Mom telling all we kids, there were 5 of us, that we're going to have to constantly be checked for diabetes because it's a genetic, it's in our blood cells, Mom said. And I was young, you know, I had no idea what all of that meant, but it's interesting the way the American Diabetic Association says, yeah, there's a genetic linkage here, folks. The one thing I remember about Grandma, she and my grandpa, Henry, always made cornbread, always. That's all they ate, cornbread, day and night. So watch. What causes diabetes? Of course, the majority of doctors say the cause of diabetes is largely unknown. My hypothesis, however, that I'll share with you today that I think is real important, fungi and their poisonous byproducts called mycotoxins cause diabetes. Welcome to the study of the role of fungus in diabetes. This will be on the website. So if you have friends right now, you're saying, oh, he's at work, I wish I could call him or her and tell her, this will be up on our website also. Can fungus even cause human disease, let alone diabetes? In the course of time, more than 70,000 species of fungi have been recognized and described. It has been estimated the total number of species is probably 1.5 million, and a comprehensive list of all the fungi that have been incriminated as causing human disease may well exceed 400 species. Now, fungi degrade, and they make a poison. It's natural. As these things degrade, they get moist and they begin breaking apart and they give an emission. It's gas and solid and liquid and so forth. But it's a poison called a myco, means fungus, toxin, a mycotoxin. Mycotoxins, these are poisonous chemicals made by fungus. Thousands of these have been identified because one fungi can make several mycotoxins. And get this, they are capable of producing illness and death in humans and animals, says the Journal for the American Medical Association. Keep in mind, this is important. They're immunosuppressive because they're in our bodies, our immune system is going down. And they are heat stable, they can't be destroyed in the cooking process. Now, when you're cooking the rice, the fungus that deposits the mycotoxins can be destroyed. You just heat the water up and the fungus is dead. But if they've already made their deposits of mycotoxins, you're eating mycotoxins. And doctors say about 0.15 milligrams. If you had a bagel this morning or a bowl of cereal, you got about 0.15 milligrams of this poison in your body. Folks, this doesn't occur in medical science. This knowledge isn't out there. They don't know this. Not bad people, really good people, but they don't have this information. I am not a doctor. It goes without saying that if I were a doctor, I'd be treating diabetic patients with glibazone and other drugs that we'll talk about in the presentation. I'm not a doctor. I saw a grandmother die of this. I scratched my head. I heard that I should be tested often for it because if Grandma had it, we're going to have it. There's genetics and then there's epigenetics. Epigenetics says you can steer your genetic system away from these diseases. The fungal history of diabetes, look at this. Hundreds of years ago, Dr. Witt observes that people with diabetes also get uric acid disease called gout. By the way, it's still common today. In 1954, Dr. Griffiths discovered that uric acid causes gout. This is still believed today. Figure out what causes the uric acid, and you might just know the cause of both diabetes and gout. So, What makes uric acid? You're like me. You see on television these doctors in all these drug ads say the cause of gout is high uric acid. What causes the high uric acid, okay? In 1963, Dr. Svlia discovered that brewer's yeast makes uric acid. Oh my gosh. Gout is also called the beer drinker's disease. Beer is brewer's yeast. But there are so many people who eat yeast every day because it's nutritious. 1990, Dr. Coleman feeds mice a 10% brewer's yeast diet, and they get diabetes. Brewer's yeast is not the only fungus contributing to diabetes. Now, when we get back, I want to talk about one called Cryptococcus. This is a fungus. Do you have birds at home? Parakeets? Have you ever been around rotted wood, decaying wood, or eucalyptus tree bark? I mean, this Cryptococcus is a nasty, nasty fungus. Now that you know that fungi make these poisonous products called mycotoxins, I want to tell you what I presented recently at a cancer presentation. If you take one of those mycotoxins, it's called aflatoxin, and you inject it into laboratory animals, they all get cancer. A different mycotoxin called streptozotocin, if you inject it into laboratory animals, they all get diabetes. You inoculate them over a period of time. What are these names then? If fungus injected into a mouse gives it cancer, why isn't cancer called injected into me a poison? It isn't. These are called mycotoxicoses. Anything due to a mycotoxin, any illness, a hangover, is a mycotoxicoses. You drank brewer's yeast, you got drunk, and all of a sudden you got all these health problems. When we come back, I want to talk to you about one fungus, and there are more, that contributes directly to diabetes. Don't go away.
It's fungus until proven otherwise. Hi everybody, I'm here at Roy's Natural Market here in Dallas, Texas for the FUPO segment today, and it's all about chlorophyll. Those of you who go to health food stores know what this is. This is wheatgrass juice, fresh from the juicer. A lot of us in the health world love drinking this stuff, and at first it was a little bit, didn't taste that great, but then after we did it more and more, we began to like it. And why did we do it? Because of the energy we got, because of the detoxification, and all of the normal things that we love about green, leafy vegetables. A lot of concentration in a little bitty shot. Now, what about those of us who are FUPO heads though? Does chlorophyll have anything for us? Well, right here at Oregon State University, I have a study that talks about what chlorophyll actually does. And of all the things that it does, for us FUPO heads, the main thing that we care about is, does it deal with mycotoxins and fungus? And sure enough, it does. They showed at Oregon State University that when people consume chlorophyll, about 300 milligrams a day, it was able to completely detoxify aflatoxin B1. Guys, this is the most carcinogenic substance on the planet. It is a mycotoxin. If you're eating corn, if you're eating wheat, if you're eating peanuts, you have got to make sure that you get rid of that, get on the phase 1 diet, and introduce yourself to chlorophyll. Now, if you're ready for this, 300 milligrams a day means about 3 servings of this every single day. Or if you want pure wheatgrass juice, you can get the powdered form. But if you're like me, you want to go big league. Because for those of us who really know what it's all about and listen to Doug Kaufman, we know that it's fungus until proven otherwise.
Welcome back. So what causes this disease that we call diabetes? I think you're going to learn in the next, about 15, 20 minutes that fungus does. One fungus is called Cryptococcus, and it's linked to diabetes. Dr. Isogai in Japan discovered in 1976 that the fungus Cryptococcus, and it's Cryptococcus neoformans is the name of it, in the pancreatic cells of 2 children who died of diabetes. right? He was looking for it. Later, Cryptococcus is experimentally injected into the pancreatic artery of animals, and it destroys their pancreatic islet cells. Here's why that's important. The very definition of type 1 diabetes, the destruction of pancreatic islet cells. Currently, diabetes doctors never look for fungus in diabetic patients, okay? So you have, folks, you really have to be a proactive patient. You've got to talk to your doctor about this. And endocrinologists who study the hormone-producing glands in the body, I don't know if they're going to allow you to sit down and say, look, I really want to look at this as a fungus. They weren't taught this in medical school, yet it's so, so important. More on Cryptococcus. Cryptococcus neoformans fungus makes the mycotoxins uric acid. Remember we said what causes gout? Uric acid causes gout, but something makes that uric acid. It's made by a mycotoxin, right? Cryptococcus makes a poison called uric acid, and another one called loxin. Oh, you're eating this. This fungus is found in bird droppings, Cryptococcus is, eucalyptus trees, and decaying wood. So those of you who have diabetes, you have parakeets at home? Are you a pigeon keeper? You know, do you sweep up pigeon poop? Things of that sort. Studies show that the mycotoxin alloxin is used by the food industry to make white flour look cleaner. Amazing. Alloxin destroys the beta-1 cells of the pancreas, the very definition, again, of type 1 diabetes. So could just eating, wheat, eating white bleached wheat, could that be giving us all these diseases? There's many reasons, in my opinion, to stay away from grains. One of them is all of these mycotoxins that the grain makes. Diabetes, the food and fungus link. Dr. Esther discovered in 1973 that cured lamb contains ochratoxin, this mycotoxin, this apotulin and penicillic acid. It's loaded. Cured lamb is loaded with mycotoxins. Then in 81, a few years later, Dr. Helgeson notices that eating the holiday dish cured lamb, and this could be cured any food, but cured lamb, during the time of conception caused Icelandic women to give birth to diabetic children. There's simply too much information around this fungus link to diabetes to just walk away and say we don't know the cause of diabetes. We do know how to give these people drugs, but what do those drugs do? Do they have any antifungal properties? When we get back, we'll discuss that.
If you ignore information that's being presented to you to heal you, that information that can save your life, then the ignorance is actually willful.
I had gout, and I went on the phase 1 diet. After going on the phase 1 diet, it went away, and I still kind of can listen to Doug, but of course I went off the phase 1 diet. Last year at this time in May, I had 3 strokes and was strapped to a bed, at which time they told me I also had diabetes. They put me on all sorts of pills, but said nothing about what I should do in order to try and help myself to get rid of it. Once I got home, I pulled out Doug's old books, and one was The Fungus Link and Infectious Diabetes, and I read it, and since then I'm basically off all medications. Don't have any more diabetes, and because of Doug's information, I'm basically 100%, and at this time I will not go off the phase 1 diet. So that's basically my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I weighed 330 pounds, and I was watching him and found out also I was diabetic at the time, and started going on his phase 1 diet. I even ordered the book, the weight loss book, and so on. And this was in May, and by November I had lost 60 pounds and was no longer considered diabetic by my doctor. My glucose level went from 360 to 99 on average per day. And I'm now completely off of diabetic medicine, and I am no longer taking high blood pressure medicine.
You know what I was doing 11 years ago now? Dr. Dave Holland, a wonderful young doctor, and I were writing a book called The Fungus Link to Diabetes. An amazing book. It sold so well, and I'd be hard-pressed to find a physician, an endocrinologist, who would read this book and say, nope, this has nothing to do with it. There are so many scientific facts in here. Anyone with diabetes should walk into his or her doctor, hand this to him, and say, I'll be back in a week. I'd like for you to read this. If they say there's nothing to this book, be careful. His own scientific references are in here. Here you go, John. Throw that over to you. Thanks. Good catch, by the way. Okay, now, type 1 diabetes we've been through. Type 2 diabetes. Many people say type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. So many of us eat our way or sedentary life our way, you know, that's the most exercise we get all day, into type 2 diabetes. Either the body does not produce enough insulin or the cells ignore the insulin. Since diabetes, you guys, is called an autoimmune disease, current thought is that normal cells turn deadly and a war within begins. This is so sad, but it's the definition of the 97 autoimmune diseases. We don't have to figure any of them out. Let's get 7 drugs on the market to treat each of them. Doctors are smarter than that. I don't think doctors want to go down that road. They became doctors and nurses to help people, and yet they have guidelines they must follow, and that says prescribe, prescribe, prescribe. We're told that genetics are involved in diabetes, just like Mom told me with my grandmother. Are we simply dealt a bad hand by our parents or grandparents, or is our diet responsible without our doctors even knowing it? The answer is yes, it is. Peanuts and corn. Remember I told you that Grandma and Grandpa made cornbread every day, and they'd pour milk into it and give it to all 5 of their grandchildren, like loving grandparents would do. These foods, and grain in general, are commonly contaminated with fungal byproducts called mycotoxin. You learned that word today. Myco means fungus, toxin is poison. Aspergillus penicillium makes several of these known poisonous mycotoxins, including these 3, arachotoxin, aflatoxin, botulin. Let's delve into those just quickly here. Arachotoxin creates insulin resistance. It also damages the kidney. How do we define type 2 diabetes? It's called insulin resistance. Every doctor knows that. So arachotoxin from your diet, more than likely, or you breathe mold in your home, or you've been on lots of antibiotics, which are mycotoxins, has created maybe type 2 diabetes. Botulin inhibits human cells from using oxygen. Fungal cells live anaerobically fine. They love it. So botulin creates an environment favorable to fungal growth. And finally, this poisonous mycotoxin that causes cancer. It blocks the breakdown of sugar in our cells and liver, so our blood sugar levels remain high. Isn't that what diabetes is? Fungus thrives in a high sugar environment. Do you see where we're going today? My grandmother didn't know this. She ate corn all of the time and didn't exercise ever, but I was a little boy. She may have when she was in her 20s and 30s. She looked great. Grandma was not overweight. Very often we associate obesity with people with diabetes, syndrome X. You know, they have all sorts of problems. I found something fascinating. The #1 GI complaint, says the American Diabetes Association, the #1 GI complaint is constipation when you have diabetes. We're going to go into that. This show isn't about educating you only. We're going to get you some resolve today also, so don't go away. Next slide says, and this is a big slide. In 1997, you remember what you were doing in 1997? $44 billion was spent on diabetes. 2002, $92 billion, $174 billion, you see where it's going. Predicted 2034, $336 billion. But let me just tell you, about 15 years ago, diabetes rates began to decline. Why? Okay, you with me? 15 years ago, the late 1990s. I made this slide a different color on purpose. This one you need to see. The class of diabetes drugs came on the market about 15 years ago. You know them, Actos, Avandia, Resolin. They're called glitazones. I wrote about this in my blogs, okay? This is the way these drugs work, by activating, and folks, I don't expect you to read this, a group of nuclear receptors with greatest specificity, yada, 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 yada. It's science talk. I can't understand a bit of it, but this is the way they think these glitazones work. Here's the way I think glitazones work. They kill fungus, all of them. If you're taking Actos, you're taking an antifungal drug. I don't think your doctor knows that. I really don't. But look at this. One American study done not long ago found that glitazone drugs work better at killing fungus than the well-known antifungal drug diflucan. Getting kind of weird out there, isn't it? I've always said that anything that works in medicine works because it has antifungal properties. Chemotherapy sometimes works, kills fungus, kills the patient too sometimes. If I had diabetes, we're going to go into this when I get back from this break because this question comes up all the time when I'm out there. Doug, if you had diabetes, what in the world would you do? And so I sat down one night and said, okay, what would I do? Starting with the doctor. Maybe my doctor has been my friend for 20 years, but he's been keeping me on blood tests and drugs for 20 years. If I want to step back and figure out the cause, and I don't want to be on all these drugs anymore, can he or she help me? So that's where we're going to go. So don't go away. I'll discuss as we get back what we do if we have diabetes. One course you might take. Don't go away. I'll be back. The same book that taught me that my people perish for lack of knowledge, God said this, also teaches in the Old Testament there are 32 references to not using yeast. This show, as you now know, is all about mold, mildew, and fungus. Well, if you have a fungal condition, know that we feed it. What foods feed fungus? Know that there are safe supplements to help remediate it inside your body, and lifestyle plays a great role in eliminating it. How do you learn more about what we're teaching here? Go to my website, knowthecause.com. You know, Denny and I have done juicing in the morning, etc., juicing in the afternoon, juicing at supper time. But many of you don't want to get the juicer out, or you don't have a juicer, but you want something to give you that kick in the morning. Well, we got the morning starter for you here. And I had a sip of this morning. Ruth made this. And it gets you started.
It's good.
Yeah, it's
and it
very
clears
good.
you out. It's really good if you're fighting a cold or just, it just feels real cleansing.
No, it warms the cockles of your heart.
It
I mean, this
does.
is amazing, amazing stuff. And that's the first time I've ever had it. When Denny comes to town, I get all sorts of new,
You always get
great
something
stuff.
new, huh?
Yeah, I do. This is phase one, and the interesting thing about it is phase one used to be so boring. You know, Kaufman's favorite diet is, you know, onion and tomato and olives and so forth. This is gives whole new meaning to the term get a kick in the morning.
Okay, so what we've got here is the juice of half a lemon.
Okay.
And again, it's very personal. If you like it a little more tart, you can use the whole lemon.
Okay.
Cinnamon, I use about a quarter teaspoon. I like spicy, so I actually use a lot of cayenne, but for you, because I know you're a lightweight, I'm only going to use just a tiny bit, maybe a pinch.
You know me too
We'll call
well.
it a pinch. I wouldn't use more than a quarter teaspoon, more than an eighth of a teaspoon for most people.
Yeah, that's the
and a
rhythm.
little bit of ground ginger, and you could use fresh ginger too if you wanted to grate a little fresh ginger in there. And I put a little stevia in the lemon juice while you were talking.
So you put a drop of that or something.
Yeah. And there's that. You want to stir it up.
Yeah, yeah. I have a little fork here that we can stir it with.
Okay.
No spoon, but it's a clean fork.
So, and as you're drinking it, what will happen is the spices will settle out of it to the bottom a little bit. So you want to kind of drink it with a spoon nearby so you can stir it back up into it. But it is
You know what, Denny?
so yummy.
The cinnamon is now being acknowledged by doctors that it's very, very good for people with diabetes, et cetera. It's becoming kind of medicinal. So this drink this morning, the first thing I did was smell the cinnamon. Oh, yeah.
And
the cayenne.
cinnamon's antifungal too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
As
yeah.
cayenne too.
This is a potent antifungal drink, and it warms as it's going down.
And you know, Logan drinks it cold. She likes it iced.
Really? Oh, yeah, I can
Drinks it
see
all day,
why she
yeah.
would, but that is tremendous. Start your morning with that. It's on the website. Simple recipe, quick to make if you don't want to juice. This is a morning kicker.
Okay, and now we have another one. We have an alternative to your
Kick.
to your cafe latte. If
Oh.
you've been addicted to those, or you like to go to the coffee store and get something frothy, this is a great alternative. It's matcha, green tea matcha, which is really good for you.
Yeah, grown in the shade. Matcha is a tea from Japan that's grown in the shade. It's not grown in the sun. And then it's stone milled. I mean, everything is done by hand. Really loaded with antioxidants, high on the ORAC scale, high in L-theanine for those of you who feel you're under a lot of stress, that may help. And it holds promise in HIV research, cancer research, fat loss, et cetera. So this is something new. This I've not had.
Okay, so I will tell you, with matcha, it's a powdery substance, and you really need to whisk the heck out of it to keep it from being lumpy when you drink
you
it.
can smell that. It smells good, doesn't
You
it?
can use you could just use a regular whisk or whatever you have, but it gets kind of a little crema on it, like a latte would. And then you could sweeten it if you wanted to. And to make it a latte,
there's
we
the-
have some
yeah.
almond milk. We actually have the luxury of having a little frother here, which is fun. But you could just heat your almond milk if you wanted, and whip it up with a whisk.
No caffeine in
If you
it.
didn't have it, no. Well,
Matcha.
I think it has. I think caffeine or matcha has a little caffeine in it, but
Most importantly, it's got chlorophyll. I talk about chlorophyll all the time as really detoxing the organs in the body. Very therapeutic for those of you who feel as though you may be toxic in your body.
isn't it pretty?
Arigato. Wow. Very good.
You'll never miss your latte with that around, right?
That is good time big. Yes, I won't miss my latte because I don't like lattes. That is very good. For the duo, very, very good morning alternatives to coffee or juicing. These are tremendous. Thank you so much.
Coconut oil is a high-quality fat that makes a great candida killer. My home is never without it. One reason is because coconut oil contains the most lauric acid of any substance on earth. Your body converts this lauric acid into monolaurin, a substance that can actually destroy viruses such as HIV, herpes, influenza, measles, and giardia.
If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. What would you do, Doug, if you or your wife or your child had a disease, diabetes in this instance? Number one is going to be tough. I'd work with a doctor who is open-minded. So you go back to your doctor and you say, look, doctor, I just read this book, The Fungus Linked to Diabetes. I saw a PowerPoint presentation. It's pretty convincing. Your doctor isn't going to welcome you with open arms. He's not going to say, okay, good, let's go on this phase 1, phase 2 diet. Let's read the book. He's got a lot of patience. I understand that because I used to work in clinical nutrition. So every hour you got to see a couple more people. Share the book, share your thoughts with him. Work with a doctor who's open-minded. With permission then from that doctor, change my diet to the phase 2 diet, which allows a few more carbohydrates in without any grains. Number 3 is remediate fungus with antifungal supplements or antifungal drugs. You learned today a little bit that the glitazones are antifungal, but I don't believe in taking drugs. Ginger, garlic, vitamin C, those are all antifungal too. Enhance immunity with supplements and exercise. Man, I didn't want to get up this morning. But I remember Grandma died of diabetes. That's one of the reasons I got up, and for 30 minutes I hit it, and I always do. You must take good care of your health. Hey, God bless you folks. Thank you for watching today. Stay in touch with us, and we'll stay in touch with you every day on Know the Cause.